Station has dead air, Daddy loses money. Albeit these guys are getting such a deal, Daddy's not losing that much money. So take that, Mr. No Raise in 48 years.
This is Sports Talk with Phil Kornbluth, Chris Bergen, and Pat Daniel. Sports Talk is heard across the state on radio affiliates of the Sports Talk Media Network and is streaming live on SportsTalkSC.com, as well as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. The South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number to call in is 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now, here are Phil, Chris, and Pat with tonight's edition of Sports Talk.
And a very pleasant good Monday evening to you, and welcome inside a brand new edition of Sports Talk here on the Sports Talk Media Network. Chris Bergen live from Florence. That means Pat Daniel must be lurking around somewhere in Florence, actually in Columbia, where he is. If he were here, it'd be much more difficult to handle things. And, of course, with Phil Kornbluth out on vacation for another week, that means we welcome aboard somewhere along the Ashley River. We say hello to Matt Smith on the program as well. If you'd like to be a part of the festivities, we've got plenty of room for you as we get into a brand new week up on our SC Education Lottery lucky number at 888-898-2525. Again, 888-898-2525. We will hear from Coastal Carolina head football coach Jamie Chadwell a little bit later on in the program, fresh off of Sunbelt Media Days. Get his take on the Chanticleers coming off a terrific season and how they improve on, quite frankly, how they can improve off an undefeated regular season. We'll hear from Isaiah Likely and also Silas Kelly, who were with Coach Chadwell in New Orleans last week. We'll hear from them. Also coming up on the program, we'll continue looking back on SEC and ACC Media Days. We'll check in on Kentucky head coach Mark Stoops on the program this afternoon. And also Fisher DeBerry set to join us coming up just after 7 o'clock here this evening to chat about the South Carolina Coaches for Charity annual gala set for tomorrow night up in Greenville. We will be there broadcasting live, and we'll get Coach DeBerry's take on Josh Conklin, Clay Hendrick, of course, Shane Beamer, Dabo Sweeney, Jamie Chadwell, Buddy Pugh, you name it. They're going to be there, and we will be there as well tomorrow evening here on the program. But as we get rolling on this Monday, certainly wide open for you, fresh off what was incredibly an amazing week and maybe one of the biggest stories of the year with SEC expansion. We will continue delving into that here on the program here this evening up until 8 o'clock. And I want to get your take again on the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number at 888-898-2525. But I welcome in my broadcast partners here with Phil Kornbluth out on vacation, the triple header of Matt Smith, Pat Daniel, and, of course, myself. Mr. Daniel, how was your weekend, sir?
It's never quite long enough, Chris, but it was it was quite nice, quite relaxing. It was very hot. It was just sweltering. No relief here this weekend, but it was nice finally not having some rain after all the rain we've had the last 4 to 6 weeks.
You know, it's funny. I was sitting here at the house at about 9 o'clock or so last night. I realized how late it was getting, and I looked at my wife and said, the weekends never are long enough. You're exactly right. I'm a full advocate of the 3-day weekend and the 4-day work week. I think we could get just as much done. Say you work 4 days and you work 10 hours a day as opposed to 9 hours a day. Of course, none of us here at Sports Talk, we work anywhere close to just 9 hours a day. It's much, much more extensive than that. But I'm thinking I could buy into some of the countries who do the 4-day work week.
Sign me up now. Would love that. Love that idea, Chris.
Matt Smith down along the low country and just outside the Ashley River. We say hello to Matt Smith on the phone lines and the what is, of course, becoming the wonderful world of sports talk. As we say hello to Smitty. How you doing this weekend?
I'm doing great, and every day is a weekend here in Charleston.
That's sort of why I phrased it as what?
At least that's the way the traffic is indicative of. Every day is like rush hour on a Friday afternoon here in Charleston. But it's fun, and I am so excited. You just said, we'll continue to talk about Oklahoma and Texas. To me, this is like one of those major thought experiments that we didn't think would really come to pass. I mean, you always thought it was in the back of your mind a possibility, but the SEC doing what they have done, to me, this is, you just said, one of the biggest stories in college football. This may be the big, in my world, based on my interest, this is the biggest sports story of the year.
Well, I positioned it a little bit like that, but I agree with you. I think it is absolutely the biggest sports story of the year. And on Friday, when we delved into this after we sort of got the reports on Wednesday and Thursday that this was actually going to occur, Phil went sort of the naughty side of the coin. He looked at it as if this were the backroom deals, the smoke-filled rooms, about how nasty and how sort of seedy college athletics has gotten. I look at it a different way, and I had a couple of days to sort of step back and look at this, Smitty, and I really believe if you're the SEC, this is genius. If you go in and get both Oklahoma and Texas, and there were reports, and I don't know how accurate this was, and we touched on this Friday, but there are reports out there that the SEC may not stop at 16. They are potentially looking at adding both Ohio State and Michigan out of the Big Ten, Clemson and Florida State from the ACC. And what that tells me is that the SEC could not care any less about any other sports. All of this move is to try and make sure that every college football champion moving forward comes with an SEC banner.
Yeah, you're right about that. And the SEC, you've got to give them credit for this. I think the SEC and Clemson have both done this very well, which is they understand that football is the driving economic force. So when you look at Clemson and you talk about what they've done as an athletic department in the last decade, it's been all focused on, let's make sure let's get the football program, get everything first. And then, what's going to happen is that rising tide will lift all boats. Now, it doesn't always work out that way, but you can't say that Clemson hasn't done very well financially thanks to the success of Dabo Swinney in that program. Well, the SEC just does that on the conference level. Every decision they make, they don't go chase Kansas for basketball, right? Kansas would be a crown jewel for any conference in terms of their basketball history and what they're going to do moving forward. But the SEC keeps its eye on the ball. Everything we do with football first in mind. And what has happened is they are creating a super conference. And it's not just, and you know this better than most, Chris, from living and working in Texas, it's not about what Texas brings to the table in terms of, expecting them to go 10-2 every year. They're not going to. It's the brand name. It's the loyalty. It's putting that SEC footprint even further into the state of Texas. And Texas A&M was a great entree, a great entry point into the state of Texas. But if you land Oklahoma and Texas, which it seems that that's where all of this is heading and it's going fast, now you are in every market in the Southwest. You are on every television set on Saturdays with a combination of Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and Texas. That's ridiculous. And look, Phil can be frustrated that this is because it's probably not good for college football overall, but the SEC could make its own rules now. That may be bad for the sport in the long term, but it's fascinating to watch in the near term.
Well, and it's one thing, you can talk about wanting to be an entire athletic department, whether it be Clemson softball or Ohio State basketball or Michigan ice hockey and Oklahoma softball and the whole 9 yards. But let's face it, football drives the bus. And with regards to that, Pat, I think this move, if they are able to add those other 4 schools, it clearly indicates to me that the Southeastern Conference only concerns itself with whether or not football is the big king. And what they've done is not only set themselves up to make sure that they have under their umbrella every single national champion moving forward, but they've also limited the opportunities for other leagues. Big 12 losing Oklahoma and Texas. Big 10, if these reports that we saw last week are true, they'll lose Ohio State and Michigan. And the ACC losing by far its biggest bell cow and Clemson to go along with Florida State. Not only have they improved themselves in terms of the SEC, but they've also made it nearly impossible for other conferences to compete.
Great points. And now let's not be too short-sighted, though, here. Let's not forget Texas and Oklahoma both have, or especially in particular Texas, has a really good baseball program. Mm-hmm. They also both have pretty daggum good, very above average basketball programs. So, and that's both men and women's. So yes, they are not Kansas, Texas, nor Oklahoma are Kansas in basketball, but they will certainly add to the pedigree overall of the SEC as a conference in both basketball, football, and baseball. So all three of the biggest sports. But yes, in particular football. This all revolves around football. But my personal take on all this, and it may be different from others, I don't think the NCAA has ever looked weaker or more meaningless as an organization than it did in the year 2020. And we'll expand upon this later. But I think conferences all across the country saw and finally had that moment of clarity. What in the world do we need the NCAA for? They need us far more than we need them. And so now they're taking it upon themselves to create these super conferences. SEC is taking the bull by the horns. Other conferences are going to be right behind them following suit. And I think this will lead to the demise of the NCAA as we know it.
And I want to say something, Chris, because you've mentioned this a couple of times, but you don't, to me, I would say this. I don't think, I always thought Texas and Oklahoma's relationship with the Big 12 was tenuous. I don't see Clemson's relationship with the ACC that way. I don't think Clemson is losing. I don't believe. Now, of course, we can debate this, and money is going to rule almost all. But I think Clemson not only are they better off in the ACC, I think the Clemson fan base and the Clemson administration are nowhere near where Oklahoma and Texas's were in terms of their relationship with the conference. I think Clemson loves the ACC. I think the fan base loves the ACC. They defend it at every turn. You didn't hear Texas. Texas ignored the Big 12. They didn't defend it. No one's, the Big 12's not as good as the SEC. And Texas said, who cares about it? The Big 12. What's the Big 12? That's us in Oklahoma. There's only two teams in the weight class. Everybody else is a welterweight. But I think Clemson has an innate pride in the ACC because of its long history there. And I don't think they're going anywhere. And I don't think Ohio State or Michigan would leave the Big 10 either. No,
I don't either. In terms of the Ohio State-Michigan debate, I think you're exactly right. But if you're looking at Texas and Oklahoma, let's deal with what we know. Texas and Oklahoma, I believe, have officially filed, if I'm not mistaken, to move out of the Big 12 and declare their intention to go on to the SEC. My question is why? What was it about the Big 12 that didn't work? In terms of football, it's a darn good league. You've got Oklahoma, which obviously is a national contender. Texas is in there. Texas Tech. Baylor had a nice little run before Art Briles, and everything blew up with him. And you also have Oklahoma State, which is solid. I mean, there were some good football programs in that league. If that's the only reason, yeah, it's not the SEC, but it is certainly a solid conference across the board. It's certainly from a basketball perspective, you've got both on the women's side and the men's side. Baylor's won national championships here within the last several years. So my question is, Smitty, what happened to the Big 12? Why is it now? Why is now the time for both Texas and Oklahoma to say enough is enough? We want to go play in the SEC.
Texas has been courted by others. The ACC courted Texas at one point. So their brand name is big. So I do think that Texas has always fancied itself as they could do better than the Big 12. Now, you ask why. Chris, you probably could answer the question better than the rest of us, but Texas has, for lack of a better word, an arrogance about it, right? And when I think when you look at the Big 12 and when you see, say, TCU and what Gary Patterson has built there, you and I and all the football fans across the Southeast look and say, wow, that's a darn good football program. Congratulations to TCU. They're no one to be trifled with. And I think Texas looks down their nose at them and believes they are more like a group of five team. I think that's their attitude. And they feel like we can't be in a conference with teams like this that are of this ilk, that are of this level, even though they have proven themselves, even though they've gone to New Year's Day bowls. There is this arrogance about Texas and Oklahoma that you lived through. And I just don't think they see those teams in their weight class. And I think they liked being courted. They like the money that the SEC can offer and all that's going to come with it. ESPN, whatever they just paid to get the SEC's top game and get all their games, ESPN was not going to pay that for the Big 12 contract. And so also, you know what? I think Texas probably believes they aren't respected enough on the East Coast. they probably think that, hey, we're better than you think we are. Oklahoma probably feels that a little bit, that they think, even if it's perceived, it may be more perception than truth, but there's an East Coast bias. And by joining the ACC, this means they go toe-to-toe with Georgia and Florida and Alabama and get to prove themselves on a yearly basis.
And to piggyback on that, let's also not forget Oklahoma has made 4 appearances in the college football playoff, and they have gotten trounced every single time. They are 0-4 in their history. Texas has yet to make the college football playoff. They may be thinking from their eyes, to piggyback on exactly what you're just saying there, Smitty, is the competition there is not good enough to prepare them for what they're going to face in the college football playoff. Now, some may point to similar with Clemson and the ACC, but they've proved otherwise. But Oklahoma, each time they have been in the playoff, their opponent has been head and shoulders better than them. So maybe by entering into a better conference, that will also better themselves.
All right, if you'd like to chime in, we'd love to hear your take. Of course, you heard from us last week and certainly what we're chatting about now. You're welcome to be a part of the program on the Sports Talk Education Lottery lucky number at 888-898-2525. Again, the South Carolina Education Lottery at 888-898-2525. Did you know since 2002, more than $999 million in lottery proceeds have been used to support K through 12 programs in South Carolina. Learn more at the South Carolina Education Lottery's website. That's all we ask you to do. Take a peek, find out more about the South Carolina Education Lottery, and do so much more and be a part of the program as well at 888-898-2525. We've got the ACC preseason poll to get into here this afternoon. Of course, no surprise, both Clemson, the favorites to win the Atlantic, North Carolina, the favorite to win the Coastal Division, and also, of course, the Clemson Tigers, the favorite to win the overall championship. Fisher DeBerry coming up a little bit later on in the show as well. We will talk more about the South Carolina Coaches for Charity event set for tomorrow night, its annual gala. Plus, we will hear from Jamie Chadwell, head coach at Coastal Carolina. They visited with the media back on Thursday at the Sunbelt Conference's Media Day, and your phone calls as well. Is this the right move? Do you like the fact that Texas and Oklahoma are coming in? If some of those reports are accurate, do you like Clemson and Florida State coming in? Ohio State and Michigan coming in. Whole lot we can delve into here this afternoon. We will take your phone calls as well. We'll do that after a brief timeout again on the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number at 888-898-2525. We will slide out for a quick timeout. When we come back, we'll get to your phone calls. Also run through the preseason forecast for the ACC came out today. The Southern Conference preseason poll is out as well, and plenty more as we roll on a Monday, getting things started with you. Phil Kornblut on vacation. That doesn't mean you can't join us. We'd love to hear from you here on Sports Talk. Back after this.
I'm attorney Jim Corbett. I love sports, and I've helped people for over 30 years. Contact me at jim@jimcorbettattorney.com when the insurance company won't pay your claim or you have complicated issues. Some other business causes your business to lose money, jim@jimcorbettattorney.com. When you lose a relative and find out you got cut out of a will or don't get what was promised. When you have serious injury, like from a wreck or mishap or on the job, jim@jimcorbettattorney.com.
The Southeastern Institute of Manufacturing and Technology at Florence Darlington Technical College specializes in sophisticated manufacturing services and workforce development training. The SIMT offers rapid prototyping, additive manufacturing, advanced machining, and business incubation services to clients from across the state and nation, plus social media listening services and rentals of conferencing and training spaces. The SIMT also houses an 800-seat auditorium, a conference center that can seat more than 1,200 for dinner or a luncheon, and numerous classroom spaces with state-of-the-art presentation technologies. Visit our website at simt.com or call 866-304-7468 for more information. The SIMT, technology to grow your business.
Every day, you make choices that protect your family. At Farm Bureau Insurance, we're here to help make some of those choices easier. Your local Farm Bureau insurance agent is on hand to provide the reassurance and protection you need. Call today for your free no-obligation review for auto, home, and life insurance that's custom-tailored just for you.
Call Buddy Bridges in Lawrence County at 864-923-2174, covering Lawrence, Clinton, Joanna, and the shores of Lake Greenwood.
South Carolina Farm Bureau Mutual Insurance Company, Southern Farm Bureau Casualty Insurance Company, Southern Farm Bureau Life Insurance Company, Jackson, Mississippi.
Stay tuned. More Sports Talk is coming up on the Sports Talk Media Network.
It's officially summertime in South Carolina. And whether you're heading to the beach, lake, or pool, be sure to include a bag of boiled peanuts. Did you know that boiled peanuts are South Carolina's state snack? Peanuts pack a lot of protein, and they're good for your heart. Buy some today at your local grocery store or roadside stand. Brought to you by South Carolina's peanut growers. Visit aboutpeanuts.com for delicious peanut-based recipes.
Founders is offering a low-rate mortgage with up to $4,000 in closing costs to full-time hospital employees, honoring your frontline efforts against COVID-19. With no PMI, no origination fee, and no limit on the loan amount, you can't go wrong. Visit founders.com/HEC and apply for your hospital employee choice mortgage today. Membership qualification required. Terms and conditions apply. Institution NMLS identifier number 410646. Founders is an equal housing lender and is federally insured by the NCUA.
I learned that people are just looking for somebody to listen to them. You can't just start cutting somebody's hair and you're going to be quiet the whole time because you're not going to be in business long.
The South Carolina Education Lottery has provided over $800 million to help students attend technical colleges across our state, investing in a new generation of entrepreneurs, just like James. Your passion is our purpose.
They are already in the bottom of the fourth up in New York, where the Braves are playing tonight, and the Braves have an early 2-0 lead on the New York Mets. Also, some interesting news out of the Southeastern Conference, as if I don't think this is the reason why, but Dave Matter reporting that the Missouri is going to be looking at. He's actually the writer for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and Dave Matter reporting that Missouri Athletics Director Jim Sturck is stepping down. I doubt it's because he can't handle the amount of influx of money that Oklahoma and Texas are going to bring, but nonetheless, Missouri Athletics Director Jim Sturck is stepping down. There will be more details certainly to follow. All right, 888-898-2525. Again, 888-898-2525. If you'd like to be a part of the program on the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, we will hear from Jamie Chadwell, head coach at Coastal Carolina, in a couple of moments. But first, let's kick off the week with Gary in Bowman. Gary, you're up first here on Sports Talk. Good evening, sir. How are you?
All right. Well, thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling.
Everybody keeps talking about an expansion, and by the true sense of the word, it is an expansion. But I'm afraid this is going to turn into more of a realignment. You're talking about bringing in some very top-tier teams with the 6 names that y'all just rattled off. I wasn't aware of Ohio State and Michigan. And my question is, and my suspicion is, which teams are going to be shown the door? Why are you going to pay the lower tier teams the same amount of money that you're going to pay the top tier teams? And I just don't think this is going to end well. I tell you what, I'm going to hang up and listen to you, and I appreciate you taking my call.
Gary, thank you. Smitty?
Yeah, I was going to say, Gary, that's a fascinating question, and there will be more moving and shifting. And but why do they pay the ones that they pay? Everybody does play a role in the SEC. And what the SEC has done over the years is they have targeted fan bases and television markets. So South Carolina, for instance, is important because it gives you the state of South Carolina. So I don't think Clemson's leading the ACC. Let's just put it that way in my mind. You've got Vanderbilt bringing its academic reputation to the table. So it lends that. Kentucky with its basketball history and giving you that market up there in the Kentucky area, which stretches further than Kentucky because of their basketball success. So everybody brings something to the table in the SEC. But to your point, I do think there is going to be some hard discussions everywhere. Let's take the Big Ten, for example. I don't think Kansas is going to stick around in the Big 12 now. Kansas will not be getting the payout. I think Kansas is going to be eyeballing either the Pac-12 or perhaps the Big 10. So that, to your point, Gary, it's dominoes, and the realignment is coming. I don't think Clemson's involved, and I don't think Ohio State and Michigan are involved, but I think Kansas is in play now.
Absolutely. I think Kansas has already begun to talk with the Big Ten. And keep in mind, Gary, these are reports. How much is accurate, we'll never know about the two from the Big Ten and certainly the two from the ACC.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast. Cloudy this evening with a low dipping to 72. Tomorrow, more clouds than sun and a high of 93. There is a slight 20% chance of a shower. We have a better opportunity for rain Wednesday with a 40% chance and a high of 93. Meanwhile, on Thursday, look for the heat back up to 97 degrees and mostly sunny skies. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
Is that crack in your windshield or your house bothering you?
Have you been meaning to have it replaced but just can't find the time?
Call Absolute Glass, voted Lexington's best glass shop for 12 years in a row.
We repair and replace glass on all makes and models.
We're the only local high-end auto glass specialist in the Midlands, and we'll come to you to make the process quick and easy.
With new technologies and vehicles, we can recalibrate your vehicle back to new.
Visit AbsoluteGlassInc.com to learn more about our auto, home, and business glass services. Just remember, if you can see through it, we can do it.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. A relative says the last victim of the Florida building collapse has been identified. Ike Hedaya told the Associated Press on Monday that his sister Estelle Hedaya, an outgoing 54-year-old, was the last victim of the fallen condo to be identified of the 98 victims removed from the rubble. He said that ends a tortuous 4-week wait for Hedaya's family. On Friday, rescuers concluded a month-long effort to painstakingly remove the last of a mountain of debris during a recovery effort in which they pulled out 98 bodies. The Oceanside Champlain Towers South collapsed on June 24th. On Wall Street, the Dow by 82 points, the Nasdaq rose 3, the S&P 500 advancing 10, crude oil down 16 cents to $71.91 a barrel. This is SRN News.
Dave Ramsey here. Do you want your money to work for you rather than you working for your money? Go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank and have been serving the Midlands since 1936, offering good old-fashioned customer service and free services. They'll look out for your financial well-being. With 14 locations, check them out today at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
Oh man, storm's coming. I need to be prepared. Where's my phone? Oh, there it is. All right, here's the Dominion Energy app with Face ID, and I am ready to go. That's right, folks. If those South Carolina storms hit, the new Dominion Energy mobile app is a must-have. So easy to use and convenient to have around. It's not just for power outages. With this app, you have instant access to all of your energy usage, too. Pretty cool stuff. Take it from me. Be prepared this season and download it today. Have you walked around your own home lately? I mean, it is your most valuable financial asset. Have you spotted any cracks in the home's foundation? Now, if you have, don't panic. You call TerraTech instead. Why am I so comfy recommending TerraTech? Well, they check off all the boxes that matter to me. First, they're local. They're family-owned in the Midlands for more than 38 years. More than 10,000 homeowners, just like you and just like me, have trusted TerraTech to restore their homes. TerraTech combines their collective experience of over 150 years of professional service in the foundation repair industry, along with utilizing state-of-the-art products and solutions. TerraTech fixes foundations. They also repair or build retaining walls. They install French drains, and they offer free inspections and repair quotes. They stand by their work, and they can be trusted with protecting your home. And hey, if you don't want to take my word for it, they're also A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Find them online, TerraTechInc.com, or call TerraTech 791-8888.
Hi, this is Marsha Klayman.
And I'm Karen Pickard. We're your hosts for The Positive Point on Aging.
We'll talk about aging gracefully and senior care every Tuesday morning from 8:30 to 9 o'clock a.m.
Join us right here on The Point for The Positive Point on Aging.
Brought to you by Oakley Village of Lexington.
There's never an HVAC expert around when you need one. Enter the field in less than 6 months with the Midlands Tech entry-level HVAC Tech program. Evening classes just twice a week for a seriously in-demand field in famously hot Columbia. Practical, hands-on labs with instructors who work in the industry. Focus on diagnosing and troubleshooting HVAC issues. Scholarships are available. Learn more at midlandstech.edu or call 732-0432. Tell them you heard it on the point and get 10% off the cost of the program.
Someone will be right with you.
All right, comments from Coastal Carolina head coach Jamie Chadwell off of Sunbelt Media Days from last Thursday, plus Isaiah Likely and also Silas Kelly on the way. Fisher DeBerry set to join us top of the hour. We want your thoughts as well on the South Carolina Education Lottery. Lucky number at 888-898-2525. We will get back into phone calls in just a couple of moments. Mentioned about Missouri Athletics Director Jim Sturk stepping down. Smitty, the University of Missouri has actually released a statement saying that he will mutually agree that he will step down from his position once a new leader is found, saying, quote, "We are grateful for the dedicated leadership Jim has provided over the last 5 years to position Mizzou for even greater success." That's according to their president. Goes on to say, "We recognize his many contributions and appreciate his continued role as we search for the next leader of Mizzou athletics." As the 20th athletics director for the University of Missouri, Sturk has led during a time of progress in new facilities, fundraising, and increased academic and athletic success. This comes at an odd time in my mind, Smitty, that you're going to have an athletics director in the SEC step down going into the upcoming season, especially on the heels of the news that the league is about to add both Texas and Oklahoma. It's not as if he's going to be around to have shepherd Missouri out of the league or shepherd them through what is going to be coming in the SEC. It's strange to me. Maybe I'm reading too much into this.
Oh, it must have been in the works for a long time, but you're right. Missouri is they are one of the cogs here to keep an eye on, because in my mind, I mean, I jotted this down and I know we've all done this. I mean, to me, I think the SEC is going to maximize its potential if they stick with the divisions by moving Mizzou to the West, because they have an old relationship with Texas. They were once in a conference together. So the West would be Texas, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, LSU, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Mizzou, and then move Auburn and Alabama to the East, which now you would get Auburn, Georgia in the division, and you would get Alabama, Florida, and Alabama, Georgia every year. I think that's how this is, unless they go with the pods.
Yes.
And to me, the pods, I don't like that. To me, that feels a little
Really?
World Cup. I feel it feels a little World Cup-y to me. I think football fans better understand divisions. I don't like how spread out the NFL has gotten. Give me big fat divisions with teams that have hate for each other, rivalries, share similar geographic footprints. That makes a lot more sense to me than going with some pod systems. Work good for, to me, 13-year-old baseball tournaments, Pony League baseball tournaments. But I think the SEC needs to be in divisions.
See, I could not disagree with you more. I happen to like the pod format. So if indeed that were the case, what's the group of death? Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, South Carolina in Pod A, Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, Vanderbilt in Pod B, and this coming from the SEC network, LSU, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, or Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas. What's the group of death if they actually go, judging by your soccer comments, what's the group of death in the pod format if the SEC goes that way?
Whoever's got Alabama.
I would think so. So that would be Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt.
Yeah. That doesn't work. Well, you know what? Maybe we'll go back to calls. So we'll revisit this, and you can try to win me over to your pod idea about scheduling.
And I actually have one solid reason as to why I think the pod scheduling works the best. But you're right. Let's get back to the phone calls and hear from you folks on the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number on this Monday. We'll hear from, we've got so much to get into, but Fisher DeBerry set to join us just after 7 o'clock. Really looking forward to his visit. But let's start with Sam in Charleston. You're up next here on Sports Talk. Sam, good evening. How are you?
Hi, good evening. Good. And I appreciate you all taking my call.
Yes, sir. Indeed. Thank you for calling.
And this is more or less an opinion. You know, I've heard on the shows all day long about, Texas and Oklahoma possibly coming to the SEC and what that means for South Carolina and how hard it's going to be now because we've been year after year struggling to just catch up with the Georgias and Floridas of the SEC. But in my opinion, this is only my personal opinion, I think the NIL has pretty much leveled the playing field for every Division I football team out there. I think all these 5-star recruits, because there's no limits or anything on it, are going to go to the highest bidder. I mean, you're going to get these wink marketing firms approaching these guys and, offering them deals. I could see a marketing firm, again, wink, approach a 5-star recruit and say, hey, let's just take South Carolina, for instance. You can come here and, for 3 years and there's a way you can make over $1 million. We'll pay you make 34 appearances a year. We'll pay you $10,000 an appearance. And no one's ever dictated what the appearances have to be or what they can be. You could go to dinner with somebody and count that as an appearance. I just think that the NIL has just leveled everything for anyone. And these recruits now are going to go to the highest bidder. And it doesn't matter if your name's Alabama, LSU, Clemson, Florida, Georgia. I don't think it's going to matter anymore. I'll just leave you with that and hear your thoughts on it. And I appreciate you taking my call.
Sam, good stuff. Smitty, if you're in Los Angeles, though, or in New York, where we never talk about college football, but if you're St. John's probably not a good example, but Syracuse and some of the other ones that are at least in the area around New York and certainly Southern California and UCLA, judging off of Sam's comments, and I don't know that he's wrong, but if you have those marketing opportunities, would not NIL be a perfect spot for you to resurrect your program?
It could be, but remember, this has only been done a couple of times. You have to care. Remember, it's about dedication. The reason Miami, for whatever they did wrong in the 80s and whatever they've done wrong in terms of NCAA violations, they cared about winning football. That's why the boosters got involved. SMU got involved and did some of this. Right? Here's the issue with the one issue I would take with what Sam just said, which is he said, well, it levels the playing field. Well, Texas has more money than most. Not only does Texas have more money than most, they care about football in Austin, Texas. If you're talking about NIL and marketing companies, and if you want to take it to its most pessimistic extreme, that players will be simply pay for play and go to the highest bidder and not care about anything else. And that's all they care about, highest bidder. Well, then Texas is about to get a lot better in football because they have boosters and a support infrastructure that most football programs don't have. Alabama's got it too. That's part of the problem. Part of the teams that aren't very good don't have that support structure in place. The highest bidder is not going to end up at Vanderbilt. Why? Because the simple truth is, in grossest terms I can put it, is Vanderbilt's fan base does not care about football as much as Alabama's fan base does. And that has always been the deciding factor in football. Take a look at the top 10 in recruiting, and you're going to find 10 fan bases, 10 boosters, and 10 support structures that care very much about the sport of college football.
Totally agree with everything you were just saying, Smitty. And I wish Sam was still with us. I'm curious if he was inferring that he would be in favor of a quote-unquote salary cap in college athletics. Because if so, I love the man for saying that. I've been screaming this to anybody that would listen to me for nearly 2 decades now. I feel like an easy way to create parity within collegiate athletics, especially football, is you do create a salary cap of sorts where we already have the metrics there. Recruits are ranked 1-star through 5-star. Well, this is an arbitrary number I'm throwing out there, but say each recruiting class, you're allowed max of 40 stars or 50 stars. We have to figure out some kind of mathematical equation to make it fair. But let's say 50 stars. So you get a 5-star, you're down to 45. 2 5-stars, you're down to 40, and so forth. You can figure it out. Well, that would then, once Alabama has had their 5 or 6 5-stars in each class, they can't get any more. That they can't stack the deck. Now it allows the lesser known teams to be able to take out on those other stars. Maybe they want to play in the SEC, but they can only go to Mississippi State or Ole Miss now and not
But
Alabama.
wait a minute. Who's to say who's a 4-star and a 5-star?
Well, there would need to be some kind of universal agreement in that.
Uh-oh.
That does right.
Phil
right now,
Kornbluth.
Phil Kornbluth. 247 has their composite rankings where they take Rivals, ESPN, and their own, and they create a composite. So I feel like they are the ones that most sources, including our own Phil Kornbluth, go by typically are 247.
Well, I'll say this, Pat. I don't think it will ever come to that because of what you're talking about, judging players. Although I would really love to see Phil cross his arms and go watch the Elite 11 quarterbacks and then hand out stars. I'd really like to see that. But what I do find interesting about what you're talking about is, and this plays right into what we're talking about with the SEC making its own rules. This is what I really want to avoid. I'm looking forward to how this plays out with Texas and Oklahoma. But here's what I really want to avoid, guys. I do, and you talked about how ineffectual the NCAA is. I don't want the SEC to say, you know what, we've decided 25 scholarships a year doesn't make any sense for us, so we're going to up it to 30 a year in our conference only. And then you're in a position where you're Clemson, you're Ohio State, you're Southern California, you're Notre Dame. What do? You're still trying to play by the NCAA rules, and the SEC just says, no, we're not going to do that. We're playing by ESPN rules, and ESPN rules say we can get as many guys as we want every year. And then the NCAA, of course, could say, what happens? I mean, Clemson could say, well, then, Alabama, you can't be in the 14 college football playoff this year. And then Alabama would say, that's okay. We'll play Oklahoma for the SEC championship, call it a national championship, and you guys can just play catch up. And that's what I don't want to see, like a schism in college football. I hope the SEC doesn't become so powerful, which I'm afraid that it is, that it just begins to make its own rules and ignoring, and it's not about the NCAA, ignoring what the other brand names in college football like Clemson and Ohio State need to compete as well. And they're trying to play by their own conference's rules.
Hence the reason, Smitty, I brought this up at the beginning of the comments and the reports that we had last weekend about both Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson, and Florida State being courted by the Southeastern Conference. Your point is valid. They don't care. What they want to have happen is of the 20 teams that they will ultimately bring in, if any of those reports are anywhere close to true, they want to grab not only the best schools for them to be successful, but they also want to take away any chance any other league has. You take Clemson out of the ACC, how long would it be? Think about this. How long would it realistically be for another team in the Atlantic Coast Conference to try and win a national championship? Yeah, North Carolina is the other favorite in the Coastal Division, but how far off is North Carolina from Clemson? And then you put them in the SEC. How far off is North Carolina from Clemson and Alabama and Oklahoma and LSU and Georgia and the whole nine? We'll get to find out about Georgia, but then, at least from a Clemson perspective. But what the SEC is doing, they have figured out the manuscript and the way for them to become the most dominant, if they're not already, the most dominant college football playing school. And I think this is the beginning of the end in terms of all the conferences being able to manage and maintain college football. Because what I think is ultimately going to happen, the conferences are ultimately going to be just to handle basketball and everything else. Because football is going to branch off, and you will have 50 or 60 schools from Alabama all the way to Washington State, all the Power 5 leagues. All those teams are going to play in sort of the college football, Association of America for their own national championship, and then everything else is going to run through the conferences. The SEC just sees this right now. They want to get ahead of it before the dominoes start to fall on themselves.
But Chris, one thing we already know is the wheels are turning on a 12-team playoff. We already know the metrics are being put into place for that. We don't even know how this will impact that. But as it currently is being proposed, you will have the 6 highest-ranked conference champions and then the 6 highest-ranked non-conference champions. And remember, that started the whole hubbub. Well, Notre Dame can never be a top 6 seed because they're independent. Same with BYU. But I digress. Say North Carolina were to win the ACC, Clemson's no longer there. They're in. So what do they care? What do they care if Clemson leaves? They're in. All you need is a ticket to the dance. Once you're in the dance, you have a chance to win just like everybody else. And that's why personally, I don't think Clemson would ever leave the ACC. If the SEC were to come ask them, I think they would laugh them out the door, because what incentive does Clemson have to go there where you already have a clear path to the college football playoff every year? And once it expands to 12, you're practically a shoo-in every year if you're even just remotely competitive or to the level they are today.
I don't disagree with anything you said, Pat, except for this. That's assuming that the current structure continues 5 years from now, because I think the SEC is going to put enough pressure, and the ultimately expanded Big Ten is going to put enough pressure on it where you're not going to have those requirements. You're not going to have, because I don't know that we'll have 6 conference champions, certainly at the Power 5 level. Now, we'll have the group of 5, the American and the Sun Belt and all those different schools will have an opportunity. But I don't think the SEC and the Big Ten, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Smitty, but I don't think the Power 5 leagues care at all. And I think part of this move to expand their conferences is because they saw the new parameters of the college football playoff, and they don't want any part of having the Coastal Carolinas and the Cincinnatis and the BYUs of the world playing in their playground. They figured out a way, if we get big enough, we don't have to deal with those schools any longer.
Well, that's right. So to what you're talking about, Pat, this is very interesting. I think what Chris's point may be is that the SEC is becoming not just powerful at the top. Let's say Alabama wins next year, but they're also going to place, let's say, hypothetically, Oklahoma in, Georgia in. Well, you know what's happening is you do that, is you stack up slots in the college football playoff. Right. It's not just about winning. You're taking shares. Every time you play in that game, in one of those games, you're taking a share. So the SEC might take home 4, 5, 6 of those shares, where the ACC will take 2 of those shares, and the Pac-12 may take 1 of those shares. Well, what's going to happen is the SEC is not only going to be making more money through its television rights, it's going to be separating through its success over time, too. And eventually, the gap will become so large, it will become ridiculous. That's the fear. That's the fear. Sure. I agree with you. I don't think Clemson's in that situation. I'll tell you what I do think is that situation, though. Guys, I think Florida State picked the wrong time to be down. I think Florida State is in a world of trouble because the SEC goes into Florida and recruits all the time, and Florida State is doing a great job of recruiting now. And Clemson is, to me, is a wholly unique situation. I think Ohio State and Michigan are unique. I don't know that Florida State is. I think when you look at Florida's brand and the other teams that go recruiting into the state of Florida and Florida State's brand right now, I think they have been pummeled in the last 2 years in terms of their, maybe longer now, in terms of their branding, really since Jimbo Fisher left, in terms of their brand, and they won that national championship in 2014. I think Florida State's brand has been tarnished. Clemson obviously has done great, and I think they've done so a little bit at the expense of Florida State. I think they're a team to keep an eye on. They're trying to come up for air. I don't know if they're going to make it with the college football landscape changing so quickly.
Great point.
Clemson is absolutely the reason, Smitty, that Florida State is nowhere close to what it was. I look back, and this was actually brought up at ACC Media Days about how they've changed since that last playoff appearance in 2015, and I think you can directly attribute the rise of Clemson to the fall of Florida State. All right, let's get back to the phones on the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. Did you know since 2002, more than $999 million in lottery proceeds have been used to support K through 12 programs in South Carolina? And all we ask you to do is check out their website and learn more about the South Carolina Education Lottery's impact at seducationlottery.com/education. Wins. Playing for fun is a win for education. Let's go back to the phones, check in with Bruce. Bruce is up next as he joins us from Columbia. Bruce, good evening. Welcome into Sports Talk.
Well, hey, guys, I guess y'all enjoy the heat today.
Always.
Well, just got a different train of thought on this whole thing about the, additional teams going into the SEC and everything. I can see where Carolina would come back into the ACC. And also probably West Virginia might come into the ACC.
So you're thinking I'm trying to digest. So you're thinking if the expansion gets to the point where they add more than just the 16 teams that have been rumored in terms of Texas and Oklahoma, if they got to a point where it was 20, say, that South Carolina would exit and you think they would go to the ACC?
Yeah, that's where they belong anyway. I said that back in 1972 when they wanted to go ahead and look at being an independent school, and Greenville News called the high school and they wanted to talk to a graduating senior, and it was me. I didn't know who was on the phone. And I told the Greenville News reporter that this the worst thing Carolina could ever do is leave the ACC. But they want to, and if they go into a conference, some conference or something else, they'll be the redheaded stepchild of that conference. And look what they are. Yeah, they accomplished a lot of things here, but they could have been in the ACC and just gone along with what they had done in the past. They were always one of the top teams in the ACC, and they still could be. But I see West Virginia or Maryland coming back in too. So that's my thoughts.
Well, you could listen. You could be absolutely right, and I think you are. Rick Sanford, who used to do this show, used to tell me this all the time. Of course, he played at South Carolina when it was an independent, and he used to tell me all the time they should not have left the ACC. And I've heard this from a lot of people, and I can hear you. I can hear that argument. I think here's the problem with us being so far down the road now. I think the payouts are the problem. The amount of money they're talking about, the SEC 2 years ago, I'm looking at the numbers now, they were paying like $45 million per school. The ACC was paying $34 million per school. And I'm afraid that with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma, the money's going to be so big that the powers that be at South Carolina are going to hear anything but ka-ching, because the money's just getting bigger and bigger, and the success in football will be more difficult to get, but the money is going to get bigger and harder to turn down.
All right, now look at this. Now look at Clemson. They weren't a national eye in the past, but they have been because they have been recruiting, and they stayed steady in the ACC. And North Carolina's on the rise too. And all the other teams are kind of getting behind Clemson. They're kind of leading the way too. So what I'm saying is, South Carolina needs to get in there, and with Beamer there, I think Carolina's going to go a long way with him. And
Bruce,
ACC
good stuff.
just perfect.
Appreciate the phone call, Bruce. Thank you so much. Smitty, I think Hades would freeze over before South Carolina goes back into the Atlantic Coast Conference unless it's actually absolutely forced on them. First off, there are a lot of reasons, and I'm sure Bruce knows this, as to the reason that the Gamecocks got out of the Atlantic Coast Conference to begin with. I'd be surprised that the ACC brought them back in. And I don't know that you – and I'm not sure you can make the argument outside of football that South Carolina is in a better conference and in a better shape than they would be if they were in the ACC.
Well, here's another question for you. And this is, in my opinion, here's how it would go. Even if South Carolina floated the idea to the ACC and made a phone call, well, the ACC commissioner's next phone call is to whom? Dan Radakovich.
Yeah.
Why would Clemson want South Carolina in the ACC? They have South Carolina all to themselves.
Same argument you can have now. If Clemson is being courted by the SEC, does Ray Tanner in South Carolina, and Phil brought this up last week, and I think it's an excellent point, considering the fact that when the Gamecocks left the ACC back in the early 70s, there was a sort of a handshake agreement, if you will, that Clemson and Maryland both would leave the ACC at the same time because of the rules that favored the schools in North Carolina. And Clemson turned their backs on the Gamecocks and said, no, we're staying here. If I'm Ray Tanner, I say, that's fine. You did that to us back in the 70s. Here comes payback. I'm not voting for you to come back in our league now.
Well, South Carolina's only recruiting advantage over Clemson is the superior conference.
No
right
doubt.
now. And of course, Shane Beamer's doing a great job. I don't mean to diminish the job he's doing. I'm saying it's a hard job because Clemson is a superpower right now and an annual contender. And I don't see those two teams ending. And here's the thing, Bruce may be right about a lot about South Carolina would be better off in the ACC, in terms of level of competition in the last decade or so. That may very well be true. But I just think they're too far down the road. I think South Carolina likes those checks that come in from the SEC annually, and I think they're going to stay with the SEC for the foreseeable future. And I think the SEC is perfectly happy with South Carolina. I think Florida and Georgia are perfectly happy that there's that separation. Georgia's the only SEC school in Georgia. Florida, the only one in Florida. South Carolina, the only one in South Carolina. And I think they all like that arrangement.
And I would make the argument that Clemson is not good because they play a softer schedule. I think Dabo and his staff have just done a great job of recruiting, and they could pull that off any league that they're in. It's not because they're in the ACC and they're successful. It's because they do a great job of recruiting, and that's why they've been successful. All right, top of the hour, Fisher DeBerry set to join us next.
Do what's supposed to happen here. Thank you for pushing the button. I thank you. Programming thanks you. America thanks you.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces. Summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters. With infections and hospitalizations from the Delta variant of the coronavirus dramatically increasing, municipalities are reintroducing mask mandates, particularly for their employees. California Governor Gavin Newsom says state workers will be under a new health order starting in early August.
246,000 Californians are state employees. 246,000 Californians should be vaccinated. And if they're not vaccinated and cannot verify that they've been vaccinated, we are requiring that they get tested.
New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio says starting September 13th, all city workers will have to be vaccinated or be tested each week and show proof.
This is about our recovery. This is about what we need to do to bring back New York City. This is about keeping people safe. This is about making sure our families get through COVID okay. This is about bringing back jobs, you name it.
New research by the World Health Organization shows when cancer patients stop smoking, they heal faster, experience fewer side effects from treatment, and lower their chances of tumors returning.
Dr. Mike Fiore, the director of the Center for Tobacco Research and Intervention at the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health, says it's never too late for patients to quit.
We now call smoking cessation as the fourth pillar of cancer care. Along with chemotherapy, surgery, and radiation therapy, quitting smoking has almost an equal impact as those other approaches.
A $27 million National Cancer Institute program is helping 53 cancer centers integrate tobacco treatment into care. I'm Shelley Adler.
On Wall Street, the Dow up by 82 points, the Nasdaq rose 3, the S&P 500 advanced 10, oil down to $71.91 a barrel. More at townhall.com.
Following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I had a lot of credit card debt and I couldn't pay my bills. I was feeling so bad. I got to a point where I needed some help. So I reached out and contacted Trinity.
If you're in debt and you need help, call Trinity at 1-800-990-6976 to talk to a certified counselor.
They were able to take all of my different payments and put them all together.
Trinity will consolidate your accounts into one easy-to-manage monthly payment, put a stop to late fees and over-limit charges, reduce your interest, and possibly improve your credit score. You'll save thousands.
And they were actually able to work with my creditors. I've been able to pay off close to $15,000 in the last 18 months.
If your debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-990-6976.
My name is Stephanie, and I'm debt-free for keeps.
1-800-990-6976.
There is chaos and confusion over travel rules and measures to contain fresh virus outbreaks, and they're contributing to another cruel summer for Europe's battered tourism industry. We hear more from correspondent Charles de Ledesma reporting from London.
Popular destination countries are grappling with surging COVID-19 variants, but the patchwork and last-minute nature of the efforts as the peak season gets underway threatens to derail another summer. Visitors to cultural and tourist sites in France are being confronted with a new requirement for a special COVID-19 pass, and Italy has said that people will need a similar pass to access museums and movie theatres and dine inside restaurants and cafes. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
More details available with news and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters in Washington.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast. Cloudy this evening with a low dipping to 72. Tomorrow, more clouds than sun and a high of 93. There's a slight 20% chance of a shower. We have a better opportunity for rain Wednesday with a 40% chance and a high of 93. Meanwhile, on Thursday, look for the heat back up to 97 degrees and mostly sunny skies. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather. WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces. Summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107 The Point. Please press button now. No, number 1.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil, Chris, and Pat with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
And we roll on a Monday edition of Sports Talk Media Network. Chris Bergen here in Florence, Matt Smith down along the Ashley River in Charleston, and that means Pat Daniels in between us in Charleston, in Columbia, keeping things rolling. You're welcome to be a part of the program here tonight on the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number at 888-898-2525. Again, 888-898-2525. Get back to your phone calls in just a couple of moments. Spent the bulk of the first hour chatting about SEC expansion. We'll delve back into that a little bit later on. Plus, we will hear from Coastal Carolina head football coach Jamie Chadwell, along with a pair of his players off of Sun Belt Conference Media Day from Thursday. Also, folks, don't forget, be a part of our Twitter poll question at SportsTalkSC and get Smitty's take on this as well. The question du jour this week is, with Texas and Oklahoma planning to join the SEC, what should the Gamecocks do in thinking first about their football program? And the options are nothing, build, win, sit tight, take your lumps, or jump to the ACC ASCP. Actually, 69% saying nothing, build, and win. I'm surprised 20% say go to the ACC. Gamecock fans, I'm stunned that many of you want them to go back to the Atlantic Coast Conference. Smitty, your take on that, weigh in?
Yeah, I think you build here in the ACC or in the SEC. There we go. And now this is an important distinction that we always have to talk about as well. Let's not forget, South Carolina is not in the SEC. It's in the SEC East. And if you look at it, it's kind of like how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Mm-hmm. South Carolina should focus on this, as they did when Coach Spurrier was having his success there. You start competing, you look up who's ahead of you. You try to knock off Tennessee, then you at a time, and you just continue to build upward. South Carolina was very close. A decade ago, they were East on a consistent basis. They could do it again. So Texas and Oklahoma, that much for South Carolina. In the SEC West, where they're going to be, the focus has to remain on Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, the teams that you play season in, season out.
All right, you let us know your thoughts up on our Twitter page at SportsTalkSC. We've got recruiting on the way, plus Jamie Chadwell coming up before we close up shop, and your phone calls as well. But kind enough to join us for a few moments here this afternoon. Always good to have him on the program. Fisher DeBerry, the former head coach at the Air Force Academy, and he is a South Carolina true blood born and bred in Sherrall, and has been throughout the state of South Carolina, has done such wonderful things for our state as a player and the like. Of course, worked at Wofford, Appalachian State, of course, sort of cut his teeth and became the person that he is at the Air Force Academy. And tomorrow night, the South Carolina Coaches for Charity Gala will take place up in Greenville, and Coach DeBerry joins us on the phone lines here this afternoon. Coach, a real pleasure to have you on the program here this evening. Good evening. Welcome into Sports Talk. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing fine, Chris. Smitty, good to be with y'all, and appreciate y'all what you're doing and your enthusiasm. And I guess y'all got tired of Cornbrews and run him off, right? And, I didn't know he made enough money to take a vacation.
He may have to pay back some debts as soon as his vacation is over, Coach, but thrilled to have you on the program this afternoon. So tell us a little bit more about what's planned for tomorrow night and what exactly is the South Carolina Coaches for Charity.
Well, we're really excited. I can't tell you how excited we are because it's been 2 years since we were together. But, you know, this is the 14th one we have had, and it's all about raising funds for the coaches and for the charity of their choice, and then for us doing everything we can to help particularly single-parent kids have opportunities through our foundation. And the whole thing is just giving back. That's the whole theme, and that's the whole thing we're trying to do to the state and to the people of the state who have given so much to us during our career. And there's such a need, as we know today, to help young people.
Coach, I'm curious how important this event is coming off the pandemic. And gosh, we're still in the throes of COVID-19 right now, and you weren't able to do this a season ago. So how nice is it to be able to get this event back up and running? How important do you believe it is, considering everybody's dealing with the pandemic right now?
To get out, so to speak, and we're scared to death, you know, from some of the news reports we're getting today. We might be going back in the other direction, but we certainly pray not. And I know on the eve of the beginning of football season, everybody's just as excited about football as we are, and we just think this is a great time. All the coaches will choose to get together this time of year, a week before they start their season. So I think it's so admirable on their part when they got so much on their minds to take time and all come to Greenville in the spirit of giving back and raise money and just have a good time interacting with the fans throughout the state. And we're going to have between 250 and 300 there at the Embassy Suites tomorrow night. And it'll be a lot of fun being with the coaches, and they'll have a lot of fun with themselves. And of course, a lot of them play each other during the year, so they'll want to be talking about what they've been doing during the off season, you know. And but most important, again, there'll be a great auction, and folks will have an opportunity to really pick up a lot of memorabilia. And we'll have some kids from the upper part of the state through the Fellowship of Christian Athletes to express, what opportunities have been afforded. And certainly we're excited about that, and that we know we're going to have and feel there.
Coach, you got a great lineup of coaches joining you. Josh Conklin from Walford, Clay Hendricks Furman, Brent Thompson, the Citadel, Buddy Pugh from South Carolina State, Shane Beamer from South Carolina, Jamie Chadwell, and Dabo Sweeney. And you've influenced a lot of them in one way or another. I'm curious, Coastal Carolina ran a modified option out of the shotgun last year and had tremendous success. I wonder if you got to see any of that, or what have your interactions been with Coach Chadwell talking offense?
Well, I have a lot of respect for Jamie. He goes back to the roots of what we did. He played for Paul Hamilton, and Paul, I coached at Appalachian, and then Paul was on my staff on 2 different occasions, and has had a great career coaching the option. And Jamie certainly ran a lot of option football at Charleston Southern when he was there, and then up at North Greenville. And certainly I have been so impressed with his career and what he's done. But not only is he a good football coach, he's just a great person who really, really cares about the influence that he and his coaches are having on their players, and what they expect out of them, and I just am so impressed with the program he's running, and the accomplishments that he had. But he's got enough. He's got enough option in that offense that it keeps me entertained. It keeps me interested, I guarantee you.
That's right. Don't throw it too much, Coach Chadwell. Well, Coach Fisher DeBerry joining us here on Sports Talk. Also, Shane Beamer is going to join everybody this year, and I'm curious what your new at South Carolina, but he had been there before, and obviously, I'm guessing you and his father Frank ran across each other. So, what are your impressions of Coach Shane Beamer?
Well, I've always been impressed with Shane, and of course, he's got a great pedigree, and Frankie and I are very, very good friends, and we're on a lot of committees together, and played each other, but at the same time, Shane brings a lot of energy. He was so well respected. I live in Oklahoma over half the year because that's where both of my kids live. So I follow Oklahoma football and Oklahoma State football real close. And boy, Shane was really, really highly respected at the University of Oklahoma. So he brings great energy. He's hired a great staff. And I know the players are excited, and I know the fans are excited. And I think he's going to really surprise a lot of people, and they brought in some good people, and boy, it really looks encouraging with what they're doing with this incoming freshman class, not this year, but the next year. The commitments that they have. I think they moved to in the top 15 in the nation in recruiting. So this shows you they're working hard.
This is Fisher DeBerry with us on Sports Talk. The Coaches for Charity event tomorrow night in Greenville will be broadcasting there. You can find out everything at southcarolinacoaches.com. Coach, one more question for you. I know Josh Conklin is a part of the event tomorrow night, but I want to ask you about a former Wofford coach. Mike Ayers retired a couple of years back, and he's somebody I respected a lot, and I know he was always exciting as a public speaker. Have you had the opportunity to catch up with Coach Ayers in the last 2 or 3 years?
It's interesting you said that. I talked to him this morning. Mike and I stayed in touch, and we love for him to come down to the beach whenever we're staying down there at the Isle of Palms. As he always brings a loaf of bread and 2 or 3 tomatoes. And we sit on the back porch and talk football. But he's a dear friend, and what a great job he did at my alma mater, which I was just always so proud of. But he believed in that option too, and it was pretty good to him, and he kept a lot of folks off balance. But he's enjoying the time with his grandchildren and his family. And matter of fact, he's on his way Wednesday, I believe, to see his son out in Arkansas. And so he's living the good life, and we had the chance to sit and watch the Wofford game year before last. We got down in the end zone where nobody would say anything to us, and we could just talk what was going on out there, But I have the utmost respect for Mike, and I tell you, he raised a lot of money for his foundation, and especially the FCA program in Spartanburg.
Fisher DeBerry with us for a few more moments here tonight on Sports Talk. And Coach, considering the amount of and wealth of experience you have in coaching, I'm curious, and I don't know if it would have been a situation where you would have dealt with at the Air Force, but how much do you believe the transfer portal has changed college football? And if you were coaching now, would it be something you'd like to have dealt with?
No, definitely not. I'm an old timer. I just believe that, in giving kids every bit of the opportunity. But sometimes kids want the easy way out too and don't want to work through the tough times. Sometimes the best life lessons you learn in life is when you get knocked down, you got to get back up. And when you're out running first team and you think you ought to be, or second team, and it's so easy to say, well, I just go join the portal. But I mean, you got to work. Wherever you go, if anybody gives you an opportunity. So I think we're teaching some of the wrong lessons about football, that when it gets tougher, you don't run and go somewhere else. You work through your problems. And if it wasn't a good place, you wouldn't have gone there. in the beginning. And, maybe things aren't just right, but don't look around and blame somebody else. Look at yourself internally and see what I can do to make this place a lot better. I made the commitment here, and so I just think we made it too easy for players to move from school to school, and I think you lose some of the things that you are really trying to teach and why was the reason you went in coaching, to begin with.
Fisher DeBerry with us here tonight as part of the South Carolina Coaches for Charity Gala, which is set for tomorrow night up in Greenville. Josh Conklin, the head coach at Wofford, Clay Hendrick, the head coach at Furman, Brent Thompson from the Citadel, Buddy Pugh from South Carolina State, Shane Beamer from South Carolina, Jamie Chadwell from Coastal Carolina, and Dabo Sweeney from Clemson set to be a part of the festivities tomorrow night. Coach, we really appreciate the time. Look forward to being up there in Greenville tomorrow night to chat with you guys, and thanks so much for the time here tonight.
Of course, we're looking forward to all of us. Looking forward to seeing you, and it'll be a fun night, I guarantee you.
There's no doubt about it. Thank you, Coach.
Have a great trip up. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. That is Fisher DeBerry. And Smitty, in terms of reputations and respect in our state, I believe there are very few people that sort of carry with them the aura of, say, John McKissick at Somerville. But I think Fisher DeBerry falls into that category in terms of college coaching. Here's a guy who was born in Sherrall, coached and played at McClinigan High School here in at least from a baseball perspective, was coached there and it just has done so much for our state. And to hear his perspective on the transfer portal, I think it was somewhat eye-opening.
Yes, and I certainly respect Fisher DeBerry so much, and I love to watch his teams play at Air Force. And I was so proud that he was, like us, a South Carolinian. And you're right. You just mentioned aura. I was thinking gravitas. Nice. That Fisher DeBerry walks into a room, and if you're there, you're going to have national championship winning coach Dabo Sweeney. You're going to have Shane Beamer, who's coaching in the SEC. You're going to have Jamie Chadwell, Buddy Pugh, who is never intimidated by anybody. And you watch them, them and Clay Hendricks and Josh Conklin, watch them flock to Coach DeBerry. The amount of respect that people in the industry have for him is certainly warranted. It's deserved. And he is a coach's coach and a man's man. And I was so proud because I thought what he did at Air Force, go back, his winning percentage at Air Force is over 60%. It is fascinating the job that he did. And he did modify that option a little bit as well. Let's not think he didn't put a little tweak on it. He wasn't running the same one they were running at Notre Dame in the 40s. He put tweaks on it and did things. And he was a great coach, and he's a great man. And it shows you what kind of person he is, that he comes back to South Carolina to run this Coaches for Charity program. And it shows you what kind of pull he's got, that Dabo Sweeney, Shane Beamer, Jamie Chadwell, and all the others just say, yep, we'll be there, Coach. We'll be there to help.
When Fisher DeBerry picks up the phone, you answer. Sherrall native, and I misspoke. He actually coached at McClinigan High School, which is no longer here in Florence. Coached at Bennettsville High School, which is also no longer here. That was actually turned into Marlborough County before going to Wofford and Appalachian, and of course a terrific career at the Air Force Academy. So looking forward to being up there for the Coaches for Charity event tomorrow night. Up in Greenville, we'll be broadcasting live there, and hopefully can catch more of Coach DeBerry and some of the other coaches before they go in to speak as part of the gala tomorrow evening. All right, we've got recruiting on the way in just a little while. Plus, we'll try and squeeze in some Jamie Chadwell as well. But let's head back to the phones on the South Carolina Education Lottery Lucky Number Hour, thanks to Fisher DeBerry. But as he hops off, that allows us to say hello to Andy in Columbia. Andy, you're up next on Sports Talk. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Chris. Good evening, Smitty. Good evening, Pat. Hope y'all are having a great start to your corn-free radio week.
Could not be any better.
Same to you, Andy.
Mine is off to a wonderful start. No monologues. What else could you ask for?
Make sure you got that on tape, Pat. Let's make sure we play that back for Corn next week.
Don't worry, I'm cutting it as we speak.
And add that to the other one that I had that you should have for him too, so he can get double spotted. Regarding the SEC of what might happen with Texas and Oklahoma. If you ask me, you should take the pods and flush them down the toilet. I mean, why do you want 14 pods? Why not go to an 18-2 two-division conference? That way, you get rid of the one team you play every year, which would have been in the Texas A&M for us. You play the 7 teams in your side of the division, then you play 2 teams on the other side every year. So within a 4-year period, which is supposed to be quote unquote how many years each student athlete should spend on campus, they'll be able to play and see every school in the conference.
All right, now I'll buy that. Smitty asked earlier because he was a proponent of the divisions, and I was going to tell him why I thought the pods proposal was the best. And Andy, you just hit on it, because you get an opportunity at one point in time throughout your 4-year career as you recruit. If you're Shane Beamer and you say, hey, Texas is coming into our league, Oklahoma is in our league, hey, we get an opportunity to play Alabama and also, let's say, not Missouri, LSU. Well, in large portions, the majority of players who come through South Carolina don't get that opportunity. But according to what the SEC Network proposed last week, you would get a chance to host every team at least once every 4 seasons. I'm all for that. If your proposal in terms of the 2 divisions, the way you worked it out, where you get an opportunity to play home and home against every team in your league during your 4-year tenure, I've got no problem with that.
Well, mine's not home and home. Mine would just be home or away with the other division, because the 2 during the 4 years would be 8 games. Okay, so they're only playing 2 games against the other side of the division. So within an 8-year period, being a fan, you'll see every team in your conference. Now, tell me, how long has it been since South Carolina has seen every team in the conference right now?
Well, gosh, Alabama and Florida are playing for the first time in Gainesville this year. I think for the first time in Smitty in 10 years. And that was my biggest beef with the current setup in the SEC.
Yeah. So I think those 2 divisions, and like y'all said, if you take Missouri, throw them out where they're supposed to be out west, take Auburn and Georgia. I'm sorry, Auburn and Alabama, put them in the east. You don't have to fight with Georgia and Auburn wouldn't be playing, or whoever, when they were talking about splitting it up when Missouri came, keeping them out west, you won't have that issue. And I just think everything would be a lot smoother. Now for Texas A&M, I'm tired of hearing their crybaby BS. If they want to really make a splash and want to talk the other teams out of it, it's $300 million extra a year just from the TV contract that will come in from Oklahoma and Texas. Me doing my Jethro Bodine ciphering, that means $21.5 million more dollars per year for the TV contract for each school in the conference of the 14. So if Texas A&M would like to pay every school $21.5 million, plus the other money that would be coming in from Oklahoma and Texas in playoff situations in all the different sports, hey, I have no problem keeping it at 14 if they're willing to give us the money that we wouldn't be getting without the other 2.
So that's what you determined.
Texas A&M has more money than God, right?
Well, not as much as Texas has. And that's what you determined through your gazetas, huh?
Yes. So, quit complaining. Too bad. You know what? I think I said this on the show last week. When it comes down to $300 million a year, there's no such thing as a gentleman's agreement. There's no gentleman in the table when there's that much money involved.
No doubt. Andy, good stuff. Thank you for the phone call.
Have a great day. And Pat, always thank you. Bye.
All right, let's keep it rolling before we hit the bottom of the hour. Recruiting on the way after 7:30. But up next, Stephen in Columbia. We keep it rolling on the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. Stephen, you're up next here on Sports Talk. Good evening, sir.
Hey, guys. Good evening. I think Andy's a little mistaken on Texas A&M. I think they've got more money than a lot of universities. So I think it's more being stabbed in the back than about a money deal. No one that has ever switched conferences for money has ever had a better situation or record. I mean, you look at Virginia Tech, Miami, Nebraska, Maryland, they were doing so much better before they went for the money grab. South Carolina, if they hadn't switched conferences, don't you think that Steve Spurrier could have taken those 10 wins to 12 and played for the national championship and changed the whole perspective of that team?
Well, you're assuming that the ACC would have been what it is now when Spurrier took over, and there's so much that you would have to weigh in. South Carolina is probably a bad example since they were jumped out of the league in the early 70s and sort of wandered in the desert, if you will, up until the early 90s.
But do you think that, if the ACC adds Notre Dame and West Virginia, that's pretty much equal, right? Because Notre Dame's got more fans than anybody on, in North America, and West Virginia's got some. So it's like Texas and Texas and Oklahoma.
I don't agree with that. To me, Texas and Oklahoma, in terms of fan bases, are two of the top 10.
Yeah.
Notre Dame is great. West Virginia is great. Texas and Oklahoma, those are two blue bloods. I don't think so. I think that's a bigger pull.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
And here's tonight's forecast. Cloudy this evening with a low dipping to 72. Tomorrow, more clouds than sun and a high of 93. There is a slight 20% chance of a shower. We have a better opportunity for rain Wednesday with a 40% chance and a high of 93. Meanwhile, on Thursday, look for the heat back up to 97 degrees and mostly sunny skies. I'm Brian Leonard with your On Point local weather.
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part because we're all #alone together. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. The Reverend Jesse Jackson was among several dozen people arrested for refusing to leave the Phoenix office of Democratic Senator Kyrsten Sinema. Jackson said Monday the nation is in a, quote, civilization crisis with battle lines drawn, unquote, and he urged activists to fight nonviolently for their rights. Sinema has faced unrelenting pressure from left-wing activists over her opposition to ending the filibuster in order to pass so-called voting rights legislation. Sinema says the filibuster facilitates more durable policy reforms by forcing bipartisan cooperation. Passing so-called voting rights legislation is a top priority for congressional Democrats and the party's activists, who say it's essential to push back against state-level efforts by Republicans. This is SRN News.
So your home is your castle. I work hard all day. My reward is time at my home with my family, living comfortably. I don't want to worry for a moment about bugs and pests. I've had Palmetto Exterminators taking care of my home for 19 years. Now, that's a long time without worrying about pest control or infestation or termites, and that's because Palmetto Exterminators takes care of it all. Might not matter to some people, but you know what it does to me? They're family-owned. They've been doing this the right way for over 60 years. The staff is courteous. They're clean. They're totally professional. And you know, it's termite season. Palmetto Exterminators offers a free inspection. They'll customize a program to fit your needs and your family's budget. They offer a lifetime warranty with their termite agreement. Now, I speak from experience. Like I said, 19 years with the same company. I can't give a more glowing recommendation than the one I proudly give to Palmetto Exterminators. Online, palmettoexterminators.net, or call my guy, Ron Byers, 254-5833. That's 254-5833, Palmetto Exterminators.
Hi, honey. Could you drop by True Pharmacy on the way home and pick up another bottle of CBD for me?
Of course. I sure am glad that the CBD is helping you.
Yes. On my last visit to True Pharmacy, the pharmacist answered all my questions about CBD, got me started on a good dose, and I'm feeling much better.
I sure am glad we found True Pharmacy. Their staff is awesome, and they always take the time to care. True Pharmacy, located on Charleston Highway in West Columbia, and Divine Street across from Greer High School.
Hey, it's Jay with the Melting Pot. It's time to start making plans for summer. And what better place to sit down and plan out all of your summer excursions than a 4-course meal at the Melting Pot? We start out with cheese, melted cheese, and all the dippers, then salad. Then you cook your own meal right at the table in a fondue pot or a grill. And then our glorious chocolate fondue for the 4th course. You can sit for hours and talk about all your summer excursions. The Melting Pot.
Summer's here. Are you heading out of town? Need someone to watch your dog? Take your puppy to A Paw's Paradise. Daycare and overnight boarding with very personalized care for every dog. They can handle special diets, medicine for your pup, or whatever you might need to give you a peace of mind. Your dog is supervised and will get wonderful socialization with other pups. Online, it's pawsparadise.com or on Facebook at A Paw's Paradise. A happy dog makes all the difference. A Paw's Paradise, 551-0323.
Is that crack in your windshield or your house bothering you?
Have you been meaning to have it replaced but just can't find the time?
Call Absolute Glass, voted Lexington's best glass shop for 12 years in a row.
We repair and replace glass on all makes and models.
We're the only local high-end auto glass specialist in the Midlands, and we'll come to you to make the process quick and easy.
With new technologies and vehicles, we can recalibrate your vehicle back to new.
Visit AbsoluteGlassInc.com to learn more about our auto, home, and business glass services. Just remember, if you can see through it, we can do it.
All right, a couple of news notes before we get into recruiting tonight. We'll also hear from Jamie Chadwell, head coach at Coastal Carolina, before we close up shop here this evening. If you'd like to be a part of the program, we've got room for you on the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. Give us a call here this evening. The preseason forecast has been announced for the Atlantic Coast Conference. Clemson, the overwhelming preseason favorite, claim its 7th consecutive. Smitty, can you believe it? It's been 7 straight if they win it this year. ACC titles for the Tigers. They got a overwhelming majority of the votes. As a matter of fact, 125 of a potential, let's see, 16, 19, 20, 21, 22 of a potential 147 total votes.
Where do I bet on this? Yeah. Give me Clemson.
7 in a row, though, somewhat remarkable.
Although I would say, I shouldn't be so flippant because North Carolina's legitimate. North Carolina's legit. I was covering that game where Clemson won 21-20 and Skalski comes up with the big stop and tackles Howell at the goal line on the 2-point conversion. North Carolina's a legit contender, so I shouldn't be flippant about it. I just think Clemson is a machine. And I think, as you said, it's so impressive that they're going for their 7th consecutive, something we haven't seen since Florida State was running the ACC in the 90s.
Doubt. Statistically, though, North Carolina brings back the most high-potent offense in the ACC behind, in my mind, the best quarterback in the ACC, and Sam Howell.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Listen, I think that's something we've got to keep an eye on. DJ Uiagalelei is different than Trevor Lawrence. This will be a slightly different Clemson offense. That doesn't mean it won't be as potent, but it will be a different offense. And another advantage Clemson has, North Carolina has the advantage in the incumbent quarterback, but Clemson has this advantage. I just glanced at the ACC, and I know you voted at where everybody's going to land. Nobody's taking the Atlantic from Clemson.
No.
That is an absolute buy into the championship game. Whereas North Carolina, I think, has a couple of contenders on nipping at its heels. I think Virginia Tech will be improved, and I think Miami, at least, as what Manny Diaz has done there is get a collection of athletes, and De'Aaron King should return. So I think North Carolina actually has serious challengers. Clemson does not in the Atlantic.
All right, Clemson favored to win the Atlantic, followed by NC State, Boston College, Florida State, Wake Forest, Louisville, and Syracuse, rounding out that division. Meantime, as Smitty pointed out, North Carolina the favorite in the Coastal Division, followed by Miami, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, Virginia, Georgia Tech, and Duke. Meantime, don't christen all the, don't smack the champagne bottle on the side of the SEC boat quite yet and name Texas as a member of the Southeastern Conference. There are reports out today that the University of Texas, along with Oklahoma, announced that it will not renew its sports media rights contract with the Big 12 that is set to end in 2025, giving the first formal signal that it's planning to leave the Big 12. The decision comes after rumors surfaced last week that Austin, I love how they put this. This is from the Houston Chronicle, UT Austin, as if there's a surprise. This is the akin, Smitty, to saying USC Columbia. We know who you're talking about when you say UT in Texas. We know exactly whom you're talking about. Anyway, and the University of Oklahoma would leave the Big 12 and join the SEC, which would then include 16 schools and create the nation's first super conference. Well, we knew we couldn't get through this without the politicians somewhere, whether it's in Washington, whether it's in Alabama, or in this case in Austin. Also, according to the Chronicle, a group of Texas lawmakers filed legislation on Friday that would prohibit Texas public colleges and universities from switching their affiliations with collegiate athletic conferences without approval from the legislature. The move is in response, of course, to UT and OU preparing to exit the Big 12 in a bid to join the SEC. House Bill 298, filed by Representative Dustin Barrows, who is a Republican out of Lubbock, and that's all you need to know. He's from Lubbock, so he's right there in the backyard of Texas Tech. Has more than 30 co-authors, but is effectively a symbolic move to express the lawmakers' displeasure. The bill is unrelated to any of the topics placed on Governor Greg Abbott's special session agenda, which means it's ineligible to be passed into law.
Okay, so yes, I get it. He's playing to his constituency in Lubbock. Got it. Now it all makes sense. I will just remind everyone what Governor Jim Hodges and Lieutenant Governor Andre Bauer told us last year on an edition of the Football Filibuster when we asked them about what their advice would be to politicians trying to get Clemson and South Carolina to play, even amid the pandemic and all of that. And they said in unison, hey, we've been there. Trust me, the politicians have a lot more important things on the agenda than who the college football teams play now and always. And I will always remember that they both said that, and that is a Democrat and a Republican coming out in unison saying, we ought to leave that stuff alone.
Thank goodness there's at least some sense and sensibility in our state. I'm driving up 85 from Clemson to Charlotte last week, and I told the story on the air with the amount of construction that is presently going on I-85 and the lack of construction in terms of expanding the highway on I-95 going south from Florence all the way into the Georgia state line. Yeah, you're right. They've got a whole lot more to deal with in Columbia, and I know they have a whole lot more to deal with in Austin. And then dealing with whether or not Texas, the University of Texas, transitions from the Big 12 to the SEC, where they're going to make more money to begin with.
Yeah, it makes sense. Now that you said he's from Lubbock, now I get, look, that's fine because that's going to play because Texas Tech is, hey, I'll tell you something. I was glancing at this during the break. It's just like we had, the movements, I think it was 2011 where we had the big conference realignments and the start of what we believe to be, we knew super conferences were coming. I'll tell you, Texas Tech is a candidate for the Pac-12. The Pac-12 has wanted to get into that central time zone. They could come after BYU. They could come at Oklahoma State. I mentioned Kansas earlier, how that would be a crown jewel to anyone because of their history in basketball. Oklahoma State, T. Boone Pickens passed away, but T. Boone Pickens' living trust carries on, right? The money in Oklahoma State is large, and I think the Pac-12 is probably going to make a play for the Cowboys. And I don't think this is over. Texas and Oklahoma will land in the SEC, and then there will be more dominoes to follow.
If you're concerned about any team in the Big 12, Baylor's the one. Baylor is going to be left on the outside looking in, and there's nothing they can do. They've got no spot. They bring no TV market. They're going to be in bad shape, despite the fact how good their basketball programs are. They don't bring a whole lot else to the table, and Baylor's in a lot of trouble. All right, before we hear from Jamie Chadwell, let's bring you tonight's edition of the Recruiting Report, brought to you by Seawells. Whether it's a special event be it a wedding reception, a birthday party, you name it, Seawells can take care of you. Plus, make sure when you go by and take care and have lunch at their all-you-can-eat lunch buffet, make sure you get the Phil special. Just ask them for the Phil corn blute special. They'll know what you're talking about. It's a meat and two meats at the wonderful place at Seawells. They're open from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. right across the street from the fairgrounds in Columbia. Contact them by phone at 803-771-7385. Meat and two meats. That's the Phil Corn Blute special at Seawells as it presents, as it does every night here on Sports Talk, our recruiting report. Clemson put the wraps on its major recruiting efforts leading into preseason camp on Sunday with a cookout that involves more than the 2020 commitments and some remaining major targets for the class. One of those key figures, of course, on hand was tight end Oscar Delp of Cumming, Georgia. Delp has become Clemson's primary focus for the tight end position at the moment. Delp also visited Clemson in early June and felt the need to take one more visit with the Tigers this summer, saying, quote, "Last time I saw them, I didn't get to spend a lot of time with the coaches, so that's kind of why I went back this week," Delp said. Delp also said he spent most of the time with committed prospects, quarterback Cade Klubnik, and also wide receiver Adam Randall. Delp and Klubnik met for the first time at the opening earlier this month and have developed a connection on it and off the field. The two have talked about teaming up at Clemson. The other top uncommitted prospects at Clemson Sunday included defensive tackle Travis Shaw out of Greensboro, North Carolina, wide receiver Andre Green Jr. of Richmond, Virginia, who also visited with Dabo at his home up until about 10:30 last evening. Malden quarterback Jaden Lucas, tight end Josh Shapp of Greenville, and also punter Jackson Smith of Saraland, Alabama. Sumter defensive end Devin Jackson will visit USC on Wednesday. He was at North Carolina State on Sunday. He will have ACL surgery this coming Thursday and will announce a commitment Sunday night at around 8 p.m. The Wolfpack and USC have been high up on his list. Jackson camped at USC and Clemson in June, and it was after his camp performance in Columbia that he landed an offer with the Gamecocks. It was at Clemson, their camp, where he suffered the torn ACL. He has taken official visits to Syracuse and also Coastal Carolina, and he took an unofficial visit to Charlotte. Malden cornerback Jaden Lucas has said Wednesday for his commitment with Clemson and North Carolina, his top two. Lucas was at Clemson on Sunday, as we mentioned, for the cookout. He also visited Clemson in June and took official visits at least to North Carolina last month. Tight end Jaleel Skinner of Greer has enrolled at IMG Academy down in Florida per 24/7 Sports. Skinner has had his top five of Clemson, Alabama, Texas, Florida State, and Miami. He camped at Clemson in June and took official visits to Alabama, Texas, and Miami. Also in June, he is scheduled to take an official visit to Florida State on September the 5th. Greenville High School tight end Josh Sapp was one of the invited prospects at Clemson for the cookout as well. The son of former Clemson quarterback Patrick Sapp has not yet been offered by the Tigers, but he remains on their board as they continue to recruit Oscar Delp as their top tight end target. 2024 quarterback Jaden Davis of Catawba Ridge plans to visit Ohio State on Thursday. He visited with Penn State this past Sunday. 2024 offensive tackle Cam Pringle of Woodland also visited Florida State on Sunday. One-time Clemson target linebacker Sean Murphy of Manassas, Virginia, committed to Alabama. 2023 Dutch Fork quarterback Aleem Epler will attend a camp at Coastal Carolina on Monday. Also, 2023 left-handed pitcher Xavier Pelzer of Legion Collegiate committed to USC earlier this month. And I thought I saw one other recruiting note from, let's see if I can find it here. Phil's giving me so much stuff, but this one was actually left off the table here.
Chris, did you happen to mention ex-Auburn defensive lineman Jay Hardy, who is he's a former four-star recruit, has committed to play at Liberty as a transfer?
How about that? I did not.
And he is now the third ex-SEC player to join Liberty this summer, along with ex-Tennessee quarterback Caden Salter and ex-Georgia wide receiver J.J. Holloman. All three were former four-star recruits.
How about that? See, that's why we have Pat here, because he helps out even when I can't read everything that Phil has given me. And there was one other. I'm going to look this up during the break, but there's one other local piece of news in terms of recruiting we'll get to as well. We'll also hear from Jamie Chadwell, head coach at Coastal Carolina, before we close up shop. But again, tonight's recruiting report brought to you by Seawells at 1125 Rosewood Drive. They can also come to your venue. And don't forget, they've got parking available still for upcoming South Carolina home football games, which are right around the corner. You give them a call at 803-771-7385. All right, that's recruiting for tonight. Final timeout of the evening. We'll come back. Jamie Chadwell on the way, and we'll wrap things up on this Monday here on Sports Talk.
Hi, this is Phil Kornblut of Sports Talk here with Major Billy Downer of the Department of Natural Resources. What words of wisdom do you have for those hitting the water this summer?
Phil, collisions can be prevented easily if every vessel operator fulfills three major responsibilities. One, practice good seamanship. It's the responsibility of every boat or PWC operator to take all necessary action to avoid a collision. Two, keep a proper lookout. Failing to keep a sharp lookout is the most common cause of boating collisions. And finally, maintain a safe speed. Remember, boat safe, boat smart.
There are many things to like about the Carolinas, and one of those is Founders Federal Credit Union Founders Online, the Founders app. And using your Founders cards and digital wallets are just some of the perks you'll have at your fingertips. And with over 30 locations, we're always closed. Visit RelaxJoinFounders.com or visit one of our office locations to see if you qualify for membership with Founders. Relax with Founders. Services require credit evaluation. Terms and conditions apply. Founders Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA.
Your home is where your memories live. It's where you laugh and where you love. We understand the importance of the valuables under your roof, tangible and intangible alike. So no matter what's around the corner, we'll be there, offering you and your family the support that's made Farm Bureau Insurance a trusted name for nearly 70 years. You deserve more. You deserve a promise. Learn more at scfbins.com.
Call me, Alex Satterfield, at 803-749-9171 for all of your Midlands insurance needs.
You're listening to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. We're back in a moment. The future of golf is waiting for you at the Players Club. Rain, shine, or after dark, you can enjoy the game of golf anytime at Columbia's Indoor Country Club. The Players Club delivers the most realistic golf experience and offers more than 90 championship courses. Play or practice with the same state-of-the-art full-swing simulators used by Tiger Woods and Jordan Spieth. Visit MainCourseSC.com to book a bay and become a player today at the Players Club, part of the Main Course, 1626 Main Street in Columbia.
Life, it has its ups and downs. Sometimes it's little things like hitting every red light or dropping your cell phone. Maybe it's the bills, rent, or pressure at work. But when it comes to the South Carolina Education Lottery, you should never feel like playing will solve everything. The lottery is a game. It's played for fun. So set a dollar amount. Expect not to win and make sure responsibilities, family, friends, and work come first. Visit PlayResponsiblySC.com.
Hey folks, mortgage rates have dipped to their lowest levels in recent history, and with home values up in many areas, now may be the perfect time to refinance your home. Whether you're looking to lower your monthly payments, free up cash for home improvements, or just pay off your home faster, a quick call to the one and only Stuart Wingo of Ameris Bank could save you money. If you're looking for competitive rates and exceptional service, call Stuart Wingo. 803-319-1777. That's 803-319-1777. You will save money just like I have so many times over the years. You can also visit him, amerisbank.com/Stuart Wingo. Stuart Wingo, the man with the plan for all your mortgage needs.
White Flag Laugh here on Sports Talk, Sports Talk Media Network. Here's the other piece of recruiting news I wanted to mention from my neck of the woods. I should have known this. Lenora Sellers, quarterback at South Florence, dual threat prospect. He is committed over the weekend to Virginia. So a nice pickup by the Cavaliers to land Lenora Sellers. All right, before we close up shop and to pay this off, since we mentioned it throughout the evening, you can hear the entire commentary up on our website at SportsTalkSC.com. And Smitty, I was mentioning to Phil, had Notre Dame been at the ACC media days as you can make the argument they should have been, we would have covered 30 schools last week. Instead, we got stuck with 29, so we couldn't quite get to the 30th. But we all of the coaches up on our website at SportsTalkSC.com. We'll filter them in as we move through the week. But one we wanted to let you hear from is Coastal Carolina head coach Jamie Chadwell. He spoke in New Orleans this past Thursday as part of Sunbelt Media Days. He was down there with two of his outstanding players, linebacker Silas Kelly, and also tight end Isaiah Likely. And here's what Coach Chadwell had to say about becoming the hunted as opposed to the hunters.
Really looking forward to kicking things off here in the next few days and bringing the team that we have back into in fall camp to see if we can continue to build our program. Obviously coming off of a tremendous season, led by these two guys up here with me, two great leaders, two great players, better people. Our challenge as we continue to go forward is we got to continue to keep the mindset that we had going into last year, that we'll continue to be hunting and be hungry and continue to challenge each other every day. Felt like we've had a good offseason. We've brought in some depth at some key positions that we needed to continue to build our program, and excited to see how we play and how we perform. Thankful for the opportunity that our schedule lays out for us. We've got several national television games, which we're excited about. That continues to help our brand at Coastal Carolina and what we're trying to achieve there in Conway. And know the Sun Belt's going to be challenging. We've got this league from top to bottom is as tough as that I've been around. And any team in our league has a chance to go out and beat you every week and earn the opportunity to play for a Sun Belt championship. And that's what what we're going to work hard every week to is to be Sun Belt champions. And so I'll open it up with questions.
Coach Zeke Palermo, SB Nation, could you speak about the importance of being one of the more recognizable names in the Sun Belt now that NIL, we've passed NIL legislation?
Well, I do think that is a benefit from the season that we had, our players had. There is more name recognition for our university and our football program than we've ever had. And so that there are a lot more opportunities because of that. So I think that is a benefit for our student athletes, and I think that's what will be a continued benefit for our players that we'll have in the future. But the main thing that we got to focus on from that standpoint, the reason why that recognition is there because of what we did on the field, and our players and our coaches have to make sure and remember what got us there and make sure we continue to do that.
Since you guys obviously didn't get to play in the championship game last year, maybe yourself and both your players can address this. And since you and the Cajuns don't get to play in the regular season, how much more incentive is it for you to get back to the title game and a potential matchup with those guys?
Well, I think we want to get back and play whoever. I don't know if we need any extra incentive for that. Our main focus and the way we do our program is each week for us is a championship. Every week we have to play for one. We've got to win games a certain way, and so obviously we want to go back and earn the opportunity again to be Sun Belt champions, no doubt. Whoever we get the opportunity to play, and we know there's a big challenge in this league in our East Division to try to accomplish that. But make no doubt we want to hopefully host it. That's the one of the disappointing things was obviously not getting to play, but also not having the chance to host that game as well. So that would be something great if we could accomplish that. But every day, that's what we're working towards.
Eli Letterman from the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. You mentioned replicating that success from last year. When you look out at the conference and the schedule, what are some of the challenges to doing that for a second consecutive season?
Well, game one. So they're all challenges. For us is we win. We win the games a certain way by playing for each other, having a big purpose. It's got to be more than just winning games at Coastal. There's got to be a big why. And so for us, we got to make sure we keep the focus on what we do and how we win games. And we get in trouble when we think we're better than a certain team and we can overlook that team and go forward. Every game will be a challenge for us. One, because there's going to be a bigger target on our back, at least going into the season, than there was last year. So that's a little different challenge. But the main thing that we do is we focus on what we have to do each week to try to play at a high level and win that championship that week. So starting game one, they're all challenging.
Coastal Carolina head football coach Jamie Chadwell. You can hear the rest of his commentary from Sunbelt Media Days, along with tight end Isaiah Likely and also linebacker Silas Kelly up on our website at SportsTalkSC.com. And Smitty, I don't know that you can complain considering this was a team picked to finish dead last in its division last year and ultimately won the conference in terms of the regular season going undefeated. But I think it's somewhat of a slap in the face to Coastal that it's got to share the preseason poll this year with Appalachian State. And I think everybody has circled that matchup in, I think, the middle of October, where Coastal goes to Boone on a Wednesday night. And that may ultimately determine who wins the East Division of the Sun Belt.
Oh, that's going to be a war, and I know you'll be there. And that is absolutely must-see television for anybody that loves college football. That's a killer atmosphere, and it's not going to be an easy game. And I wanted to mention earlier. You mentioned Isaiah Likely's name earlier, and I stumbled over his name the last time we were together, and I never want to do that again because I want to put respect on it. That cat is an NFL player, an NFL tight end. So Grayson McCall running that option, Jamie Chadwell there, kind of orchestrating that offense and then having a weapon out there at the tight end position like Isaiah Likely. I've got Coastal winning the Sun Belt again. I think they ride the momentum from last year.
That matchup, by the way, in Boone, October the 20th on ESPN2 should be a lot of fun. All right, that's going to wrap things up. Our thanks to Fisher DeBerry for joining us tonight. Smitty, Pat, we will talk to you tomorrow from Greenville at the Coaches for Charity event up there. Looking forward to that as well. All right, folks, that's going to do it. We'll see you back here tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock, for another round of Sports Talk.
Local in the morning, afternoon, and evening. Columbia's local talk radio experience. 107 The Point. Make thepointradio.com. The Point. The Point.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.